for now. Let's start this live soon. Now, just a small adjustment. We'll start soon. I'm excited about the live. I have a lot of new things in mind. I'm going to have to talk to you who listens to me. And after I listen to the live again, I always have to close the live. I prepare things, but I let it run. With new ideas, right? So I don't always say what I want. Sometimes I come and say other things. Just a minute, we'll start the live. We exchanged some ideas with you. Everything is already sorted. Okay, it's 8 p.m. in Brazil. Here it's 7 p.m. We're in Aventura, and today is March 19th, 2025. The title of our live today is Feeling as the Focus of Consciousness. It's something extremely new. Apparently, it's something you always knew and I always knew, but no one talked about it. And now I'm talking about it. Feelings as the focus of consciousness. Wow, can you explain it better? Yes, yes. To sum it up quickly, the pupil does not focus to read something that is close or far away. The pupil focuses. When you look far away and the lighting does not change, the pupil contracts to focus. When you look very close and the lighting does not change, the pupil contracts too, dilates a little more to focus. So when you focus on things, you now have an awareness of what you are focusing on. What I'm telling you is that feelings are the focus of consciousness. We're going to discuss a lot, talk a lot, and I hope you'll be able to have the consciousness you want just by exchanging feelings. And that's what we're going to try to do until the end of the live. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, but this is the conclusion we want. How can you have the consciousness you want to enjoy? You want to enjoy a consciousness. How are you going to be able to reach the consciousness you want to have? So we're going to try to do this, okay? Look, feelings and consciousness come from the body, okay? And our idea is always that consciousness is a movement that is perceived to be in the metabolism produced by the body. And you talk about the Damasian mind, where you say that the mind is interoception and proprioception. Proprioception is the position in space. Where do the signals come from? Mental position, joints, nerves, the entire position of your body in space, and your deep, visceral sense, including interoception and proprioception. So, how do you have this consciousness? How does consciousness come to you? It is a movement that is perceived to be produced in the metabolism. That is, I am moving. In my head, there is brain formation, I have formations, I have feelings, which is the metabolism. And that feeling and those things and that formation is where I put my attention, which is normally a flow of a feeling. Then suddenly in this biochemical and bodily movement, you have consciousness. Consciousness is a reference of the mind. The mind is this mixture, of course, specific brain activities. There are some brain activities. The mind appeared here because there is this very exception and interception. The mind appeared, and you refer to it. This is consciousness. You refer to the mind. Look, I'm here seeing that, okay? Okay. And I'm going to talk a little more to you about this hypothesis of feeling, but with another process. Neoscientific, yes? First thing, to summarize, I'm going to make several summaries for you. To summarize, first you feel, then you become aware. First you feel, then you see. You don't see without feeling. First you feel in order to see. First you feel in order to become aware. It's the feeling that comes before awareness. But Jackson, some say that it's more rational and logical. There is no reason and logic outside of a feeling. I will repeat, there's no reason and logic outside of a feeling. Reason and logic come from a metabolism. It's feeling, it's deep, this metabolism of feeling. How will this metabolism work? What is this idea that I have? This idea, and it's a hypothesis that I have now, it comes from propagated cortical depression, but it is a degree of propagated cortical depression. It is CSD. What is that? Some who study in Chakreka, whoever is studying in Chakreka will talk about this, okay? Propagated cortical depression. If there is a stimulus in a part of the brain, that stimulus becomes strong, the brain itself goes and increases the blood vessel pressure in the region and blocks neuronal processing. It blocks the neurons in that part of the brain, in that brain area. When I talk about the degree of propagated cortical depression, I am saying the following. Each brain area can have a grade, let's say from 1 to 10, okay? When it's 10, it's this cortical depression, but it's not 0 or 1. Sometimes it's in the middle, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5. So what's the idea? For example, inside your brain, you have the prefrontal cortex. Inside your brain, you have the cingulate cortex. Inside your brain, you have the amygdala. If these parts of your brain are more active or less active, you are in a feeling, in my view. Do you understand why? Because the feeling is the graduation of this propagated cortical pressure. It is not the proclaimed cortical pressure. Propagated. That's a bad thing, huh? Look here. When brain areas deactivate a region a little, just a little, and activate other regions, that's what I'm talking about as a feeling. A feeling is when you activate and deactivate brain areas. So one is, let's put it on a scale from 0 to 10. One is at 2, another is at 3, another is at 4, another is at 5, another is at 9, another. That's a feeling. But in this feeling, what do you have that is very important in the feeling? The feeling, it will make all the biochemistry of your brain change. And then the brain connectomy will make changes. Brain connectomy? Hundreds of connectomes. From where the information goes to one side and the other in the brain, with the feeling, oops, I have to water this area more, less that one, more that one. So the brain connectomy, it starts to work on the level of functions of how the brain will communicate. And it changes depending on your feeling. Hold on. Connectomy is changing depending on feeling. And what does this have to do with me, Jacques? Look, remember that I divided the connectomes into 3 parts: connectomy, rock, paper, scissors. I'll just repeat it briefly. Paper, it's a flow connectomy. For me, flow can include contemplation and transcendence. For me, flow is something very broad. Meditation has a lot of things. So getting under the flow, there's contemplation, there's the habit itself. High performance itself can be in a state of flow. It can be in a state of flow. Not always. Habit and high performance can attract. But you can, I'll see in a little while. The fruition is as if you had all the feelings that you have in your life are paths and roads inside your brain. So you enter the feeling, you're on the road, you're stepping on the road, you're walking on the road, and the fruition is take a blimp, look from above. Look at that little road there, that little road there. And if this enjoyment came out, caught you in the middle of a habit, you start to question, why am I brushing my teeth like this? This is metacognition within enjoyment. Enjoyment seeks metacognition. This is very interesting. So you are in a habit, and this habit that you have, The habit that you have will help you in this process of metacognition. I mean, within the habit, when you think about the habit, you are in a process of fruition, this fruition. And then you take the habit and you can question it and change the habit a little. Or high performance, or a belief that you have. The belief, are you also there in the belief? The belief is a feeling too. The habit is a feeling too. High performance is a feeling, it is a play, it is touching that area, doing it that way, acting that way, it is a play. The play that I speak of is a movement, it is a chemistry, it is a music. Feeling is a music, the habit is also a music. High performance is also a song. And suddenly, in this habit, feelings, this high performance, you have a state of flow and metacognition comes in. You start to think about thoughts. What's interesting thinking about thoughts, okay? How am I thinking? Why am I thinking? That's paper, stone. Stone is when you are in an automatism. When he takes stone, he gives more emphasis almost to the somatosensory. It would be from Daniel Kalama. Daniel Kalama says when he reads his book quickly and slowly, fast, thinks fast. Stone is thinking fast, stone is thinking fast. Scissors think slowly. Then a lot of logic and reason come into play, think slowly. It is the prefrontal well activated. The victory system is well activated. It is there trying to react, seeing, analyzing things. These three connect. I tell you the following, when you have a feeling, the areas that are more activated and less activated can leave you with these areas that are reason and logic less activated. So you are within a belief, and everything you have in that belief, in that feeling, you will use logic and reason to justify the belief where you are. You will justify the feeling. It is the belonging where you are. Logic and reason will serve to ratify the feeling where you are. And this logic is the reason ratifying this feeling, which is the consciousness of that moment. The feeling is the consciousness of the moment, because in a feeling you are receiving external stimuli and processing this feeling with these stimuli consciousness. Because consciousness is that movement that is perceived to be where? In metabolism, in metabolic movement, the homeostasis of the body, interoception, body movement, consciousness. Consciousness is this, isn't it? So the feeling for you and the data that enters the feeling give you consciousness. But I'm telling you that the feeling may be activating more or less of a brain area. You, in reason and logic, may be underperforming, especially if a feeling has put you in the stone connectomy where you are automatic. But even when he takes a stone, and even if you are not afraid of stones, you can, in this automatic way, still try to pull the roll towards transcendence. What would that be like? I am in the automatism, in my habit, in my self-performance, and I see myself from the outside as if I were leaving the body and seeing myself, looking at myself from the outside in that action. Do you understand? And this is an interesting thing. You take a feeling, you leave it, you go up. The feeling is a little road, it is a path. You go out and look from above, but you look at yourself walking on the little road, and you enter a process of metacognition. You question what you feel. Why are you walking on this little road? How important was this feeling in your life? Something like that, at that level. But in this flow or transcendence, it's always good to see and not act too much at that moment, to go there and change what you're doing. Look, contemplate, and then change this movement, especially if it's high performance. If you're feeling high performance, if you're a cyclist or something like that, or a player, and you're going to question the movement you're doing at the time you are performing at a high level, even on the piano or something. High performance is over, right? That's basically it. High performance means you have to flow a lot, and then in this transcendence, you're thinking more about the thing, okay? Each feeling will have a modulation of the variation of the brain connectomes. That's what I wanted to make clear to you, to pass on to you this thing that is very important. It's as if, let's suppose you only had 10 brain spiders, there are more, okay, 10 spiders, and suddenly the scale is from 1 to 10. And 10 is high activity and 1 is low activity. Here is 1, here is 3, here is 4, here is 5. So each assembly that you are in is a feeling. Each feeling activates abilities and properties for you to do something better or something here, do this or that. Okay. But when you are in a feeling, you will see things that you will not see if you are in the other direction. Simple as that. But Jackson, how can that be? So I can be in the feeling. If I am in the fixed feeling, I will always see the world in a certain way, and I may be seeing it wrongly. No, you are not seeing it wrongly. The world is being seen through your feeling, through these glasses, which is this metabolism of your feeling. So if you really want to see love, you're going to have to feel love, because if you don't feel love, you'll never have love. Oh, I only see hate, enmity, and I don't know what, and corruption, and the great conspiracy. Okay. So your consciousness is of hate, enmity, and the great conspiracy. That's what you're seeing. That's what you're feeling, because that's what you're feeling. So to change, you have to change your feeling. It's the feeling that these things need to change. How did this happen? How did we stop going so wrong? This is information that I'm going to give you. I don't know how you're going to take it, but it's information about where all this comes from. You take an ancient community, an Amerindian community, where there's a community where the family is there, there's the Roma, women, children, and another one together, another woman, other things. The community that's doing that there, that group are people who perceive themselves to be. And this perception of being involves the community, involves other living beings, even the forest, even the river is perceived to be everything. So there's a union of the perception of being, of the body, territory of the whole. It's a greater perception. That's what the baby feels. But we came, another white man who came and invaded the Americas and came from a concept that is a Republican capitalist European concept. Republican, capitalist, European. What is a Republican system? A Republican system is I have the rule. Whoever is born, I impose the rule. Capitalist. Capitalist is money and interest and profit. European. These are good people. These are good white people. And even the Republican system comes from the Republic, from Greece and Rome, where the good man is the citizen. If he is not a man, he is not a citizen. If he is not good, he is not a citizen. If he is a woman, he is not a citizen. If he is a child, he is not a citizen. If he is black, he is not a citizen. If he is an immigrant, he is not a citizen. So where does this concept come from? The concept of republic comes from, the concept of capitalism comes from, and this European Republican capitalist European concept comes from. Okay, but how did this get into my head or your head? There is an essence, there is an atom where we put these things and put this instruction. There is a creation of something that does not exist, a science fiction. Everyone follows this science fiction. There is a certain creation of a self, and even Freud helped a lot. Me with ego and ID and I don't know what. This creation of a self, calm down. I don't have, yes, but now there is. And this self wants this, wants that. So I go to individualism, I create a self, and from that I set rules. Heavy rules for the self. And the self enters society. Let's get the baby again. The baby keeps coming in until suddenly it starts to put the self in this baby, which is an interesting instrument of identification in society. But when you lose being the self, you have lost your innocence. Innocence is losing one's being in function of the self. What would the self be for the Christian world? Do you know that third of heaven that was expelled by the devil, that thing, that allegory, that third of heaven, a certain Lucius wanted to be God? He wanted to stimulate God. That is the self that is placed in the child, 2 years old, 3 years old. The self begins to appear, the family begins to impose, it's yours, it's mine, it's yours, go. At that moment, instead of dialoguing, of practicing diplomacy, of sharing the child's toys in another way, without this self, no. We place this self, and this self, over time, wants the third place of being. I have a being which is totally open, which is a whole, but I define myself as being a people. Jackson, man. Maria, woman, lawyer, engineer, doctor. Doctor, musician, you define it, you give it a name, you stamp it, and after you stamp it, you identify it, and more. As soon as this me, say something, every speech, every word is a technology. You use technology to express a feeling. When you speak, you have already reduced the feeling, but you spoke, you keep your word of what you didn't want to say. Then you go to the extreme right or something like that, or other political systems where people lie, that's not what I wanted to say. And they succeed in this because this is a reality. Not everything you say is what you mean. Speech is a reduction. Okay, speech is a reduction. But when you have a self that spoke and assumes, hold on, sometimes this self is speaking. The self is already false. And then it speaks and assumes it can use lies to try to put itself in a better political or religious position, whatever. You understand? So you will work with a self, a false self, and then marketing will do, no, let's make a self of yours. This self will now be the sincere self, or the authoritarian self, or the kind and charitable self, or the peace and love self. So Marx goes there and creates a self, the country of love, and then takes this self and starts to placing this great thing on the politician. And then our society starts accepting it because it is a mass of information. And here I emphasize this a lot to you. Remember the Korean sense. You have a group of bacteria, a colony of bacteria. The information that comes, they can at times act all together. And that's where our question of belonging comes from. When information hits you, even through the internet, you have the feeling that that information together, and you follow the belonging. You are a product of the information you receive. If you don't change the information you receive, you won't change who you are, because the information you receive will often pull emotions and feelings. You get stuck in the feeling. When you get stuck in the feeling, more information comes. That information coming on top of that feeling gives you awareness. You are not seeing the truth. You are seeing reality through a feeling. It is a reference. To change this, you have to change your feelings. But Jackson, how can we do this in practice? You have songs, you change feelings with songs, you have smells, you have foods, you have walks. You have meditation. For those who like prayer, prayer itself, the bells. What are you going to do with this? You are going to make yourself enter into a feeling. When you are in the feeling, the information that comes to you will give you differentiated awareness. Because the information that you receive, this information within the feeling, will give you awareness. And let's go back to the title, Feeling as a Focus of Consciousness. If I want to focus on something, I will know for myself in my life, I will know the following. Before, when I have that feeling, I produce that something better. So I will look in my life for what feeling I have to have before what to do. So you will have a hierarchy in your life of feelings. What feelings should I have before playing, before walking, before studying, before working on this, before working on that, before physical exercise? What feelings should I have? And then I go with that feeling, and it is the feeling that will give me this flow, this path. And the feeling will block your connectomies. Remember? Connectomy, rock, paper, scissors, you know? The connectomies are there, the feelings will try, they will minimize, they will make, for example, your scissors, which will be the prefrontal basically, logic and reason, more limited, because now you are having a feeling that is related to your belief. So in your belief, you do not question anything, you accept what the pastor says, what the priest says, what the guru says, whoever, or in the political movement. So the political leader said it is amen. Did you notice? Because then you have no treasure, because that part is deactivated in this feeling that this politician, this leader, this religious leader, this leader, I don't know, passed on to you. Within a feeling, you have restricted consciousness, and you will never be out of a feeling. Even because sometimes when you realize that you are in a social environment, or as a lawyer, or as a judge, you already have a Republican feeling. And why Republican? Because now we have a constitution that has rules and regulations. Yes, but the Republican sentiment is rules and norms to preserve, to give privilege to a minority and guarantee their properties and guarantee that there will be no problems and guarantee their profits. The Republic serves to preserve the security of a minority's property, safety, and profits. The Republic does not come from the original state, where a group of people are in a territory, and we will now see them seeking the good of all for the benefit of each one. No, the Republic is the good of a few for the benefit of very few, and norms and rules to massacre, because man is not good. That is a Republic, okay? Whoever tells you that man is not good by nature, that is a Republic. If he is not good, what rules do we have to impose? So that the few that the Republic defends have more profits, so that the few that the Republic defends have more properties. And as I told you, properties bigger than the state of Espírito Santo, enormous properties. You see, these differences are fundamental, we know. And then when it comes to having the centimeter, it's the politician who's talking to me. It's the Republican politician, you see? And he thinks that we are things that laws and rules have to be imposed, and I have to follow laws and rules for someone to do well. But if we, communities, if we, the Brazilian people, the American people, the people of planet Earth, are willing to do good things, naturally things will happen. But it's from the people up. The laws and rules will happen. They did an experiment, even the humanitarian book talked a lot about this, experiments where people actually stay on island guards, they gather community, they survive, they create rules from the inside out without being a republic. They are democratic rules, we creating rules and not us being squeezed, forged in republic rules that simply guarantee profits and property security for very, very, very few. So guys, that's more or less what I wanted to leave you with. What I left you with again is precisely this feeling. How do you want to feel a sense of excitement, a sense of love, gratitude, peace, kindness, joy? You want to feel it. You want to enjoy this sense. You want to give dynamism to this sense. So you're going to look for the feeling of joy, the feeling of trust. Oh, but I don't trust anyone anymore. Find something to find that feeling of trust. You get that feeling, and now you're going to read this book. Now you will listen to this or that because you want to enjoy a consciousness. Consciousness will come from feeling. Consciousness is the movement that is perceived to be produced in the metabolism, and metabolism is the feeling. Consciousness is the movement that is perceived to be in the feeling. You always have a feeling, and it is in the feeling that consciousness emanates. Don't fall for the story. No, I'm not logical. Look, let's process it with logic and reason. There is no feeling at all. Everyone is under a feeling. The factor is that You choose which feeling will manage what in your life. Of course, change it. Now a feeling of anger. Okay, a feeling of anger. To do that, go ahead. Now a feeling of love, a feeling of I don't know what, of joy. Now a feeling of excitement. Okay, do it. Change the feeling. Use the feeling. It is after the feeling, that you will suffer the so-called awareness of that feeling. And depending on the feeling, you will be open to doing something with high performance, something with habits even. And you can question with metacognition. You are doing, it is as if you had rock and paper at the same time. You are looking at your execution, what you have to do. You are cleaning the house, you are tidying things, or you are riding a bike, and then you are riding a bike and talking and thinking about other things. Oops. Riding your bike, you are on the rock, high performance. You are talking about other things and thinking about other things. Oops, that's paper. You transcended what you do. What you know is how to play with your feelings, guys. Choose good feelings. As long as you focus on bad feelings about certain people, you will only be aware of the evil of those people. If you put good feelings into certain people, you will be able to see a little more of the truth in those people, and not the evil imposed by lies, lies, lies of this or that person. That is what I wanted to leave with you this week. Until next week.